4 female killer cops convicted of murder. Women who join the male-dominated police force are indeed admirable. They discharge their duties with as much great courage and dedication, thus they earn the people's utmost trust. But a few, like the following female cops, have besmirched their badge of honor by committing murder that led to their conviction, disgrace, and downfall. Number 4, Antoinette Frank. Among the 6,300 inmates at the Louisiana State Penitentiary, a maximum security prison nicknamed Alcatraz of the South, one stands out: former police officer Antoinette Frank, who's one of the 2 women on death row. As to how she ended up there 24 years ago, here are the circumstances. In early 1993, Frank applied at the New Orleans Police Department, but failed 2 standard psychiatric evaluations. However, she made it on her second try and graduated from the police academy on February 28, 1993, but Frank got involved with 18-year-old drug dealer Roger Lazarus after handling an incident in which Lazarus was shot. She got smitten with him and they formed an intimate relationship. Unfortunately, it jeopardized her career and life. On March 4, 1995, Frank and Lazarus robbed Vietnamese restaurant Kim An, run by the Vu family in New Orleans East. Incidentally, Frank is moonlighted as a security guard in the restaurant, so she knew the place well. Their violent armed robbery resulted in the death of Frank's fellow police officer Ronald A. Williams and 2 Vu family members. Frank was believed to be the first New Orleans police officer to be charged with killing a fellow officer. Like Lazarus, Frank was formally sentenced to death on October 20, 1995, and is still awaiting her day of reckoning. Number 3, Stephanie Lazarus. It took a DNA test to finally resolve a 23-year-old gruesome murder in Van Nuys, California. Ironically, the culprit was someone expected to defend people's lives: LAPD Detective Stephanie Lazarus. The victim of Lazarus's beating and 3 gunshots was Sherry Rasmussen, who was found dead in February 1986 in her and husband John Rutan's apartment. And the intriguing twist to this tragedy? Rutan and Lazarus had a relationship back in college at UCLA in the early 1980s. While it was just sexual relations for Rutan, Lazarus fell hard for him. Then Rutan met and had a serious relationship with Rasmussen that devastated Lazarus. According to Rasmussen's father, the Rutan-obsessed Lazarus at one instance gave his daughter a warning: "If I can't have John, no one else will." Nevertheless, Rutan and Rasmussen got married in November 1985. 3 months later, the new wife was brutally killed, which was initially considered as a botched robbery, but Rasmussen's family firmly believed that Lazarus committed the murder. Thankfully, a crime investigator took a swab from a bite mark on Rasmussen's arm in 1986, which was traced to Lazarus only in 2009. She was arrested and charged with murder, finally convicted in 2012 with a sentence of 27 years to life. At last, the more than 2-decade-old cold case about a love triangle with a woman scorned is finally solved. Number 2, Laurie Bembenek. Laurie Bembenek became a Milwaukee police officer in March 1980, but by August she was dismissed for filing a false report of her colleague and close friend Judy Ziss's arrest for smoking marijuana during a concert. Bembenek then briefly worked as a waitress at the Playboy Club in Lake Geneva, where she met the divorced Fred Schultz, then a 13-year Milwaukee police veteran, and they soon wed in January 1980. On May 28, 1981, Schultz's ex-wife Christine was found murdered in her Milwaukee home by a single .38 caliber pistol shot fired point blank into her back and through her heart. Ballistics tests traced the gun to Schultz, who was out drinking at the time of Christine's murder, so Bembenek became a prime suspect, as she was the only one who had access to her husband's off-duty revolver. She was arrested a month later, and during her trial, witnesses testified that Bembenek often spoke of killing Christine and tried to hire a paid killer. Then, 2 strands of hair found at the crime scene matched a wig found in Bembenek's apartment. She was sentenced to life in prison on March 9, 1982, but escaped from Tachita Correctional Institution in July 1990 and was recaptured in Canada. She was paroled in December 1992. On November 20, 2010, she died at a hospice facility in Portland, Oregon from liver and kidney failure. Number 1. Amber Geiger. Cases of accidental deaths caused by mistaken identity aren't actually uncommon, but the case becomes a national interest when the victim is an unarmed black man while the perpetrator is a white woman. and a police officer at that. Such is the case of former Dallas Police Department patrol officer Amber Geiger and Botham Jean, the man she mistook as a burglar. Both of them live in the same apartment building in Dallas, but on different floors. And on September 6, 2018, Geiger, who was off duty that day, enters Jean's apartment thinking it was her unit. Seeing that the door was slightly ajar, 30-year-old Geiger entered the darkened living room and shot Jean, who was watching TV while eating ice cream. In her defense, Geiger thought Jean's apartment was hers because the building has mostly identical floor plans on each level. Thinking that Jean was a dangerous intruder, Geiger shot him in the chest in self-defense. She was initially charged with manslaughter of the 26-year-old accountant for PricewaterhouseCoopers, but protests and accusations of racial bias erupted. Although she was remorseful, Geiger was convicted of murder on October 1, 2019 and sentenced from 10 to up to 99 years in prison. It was the end of her promising career as a protector of people's lives and safety. Please subscribe and make Voodoo Channel your source of amazing videos every single day. Thanks for watching.